Very briefly talk about an association that has the World Association for the Advancement of Veterinary Parasitology has existed for many, many years. I have attended a few meetings. They hold conferences every 2 years, and the trypanosomiasis community is not very well represented. But I want to highlight one for which there's a booth, and if you go just outside, there's also a banner showing WAVP Africa Network. So the Africa Network has recently been established with very generous support from the Gates Foundation. And we are inviting you. The person who should have presented has had to leave, Naftali Gitaka, who works at ILRI, but I am a member of the steering committee, as is Johnson Ouma. And with funding from the Gates Foundation over the next 5 years, we have some activities that should interest people in this group. You will see from the information material that is outside that we have 3 main things that we want to do to improve knowledge of veterinary parasitology through the award of grants. So there will be travel grants and there will be research grants. These are going to be announced in the next few months. We also want to enhance communication. So the first main meeting of the WAAVP African Network was held in Chennai, India last month during the global conference, but there will be a launch in 2024 somewhere in West Africa as part of our activities to enhance information, enhance collaboration, enhance activity in the space of veterinary parasitology in Africa. So we are calling for membership. We are calling for joining of a community of practice and for networking events. And part of our activities will be to provide expert recommendations on areas of veterinary parasitology in Africa in support of national governments, in support of the continent of Africa. We look forward to collaboration with, all the major players that are in this room, particularly including the African Union. But for now, I'm inviting you to the booth. Actually, not to the booth. There's a poster. The poster has a QR code which you can scan, and that will take you directly to the membership pages. So please take advantage of this. When the calls are made, they will be made through the membership network that will have been recorded at the time. So do take advantage of this and join the WAVP Africa Network. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dan. I think that is very, very important information. We now are in the final phase of our technical sessions. This is session number 8. The theme number 5 is land use, environment, and socioeconomics, which is going to be led by Dus Malulu as the moderator and Mame Tieno Baku as the rapporteur. It's a very stimulating session. We have a keynote speaker by Salome Bushkashi and Julia Karuga. Two social anthropologists that have worked with me for many years. So we are going to be listening to some very stimulating presentations. But I don't want to steal the thunder. I would like to hand over the microphone to the moderator, Dus Malulu, to take it from there.
Good morning. Is it morning? Good afternoon, fellow delegates. My name is Deus Malulu from Tanzania. I thank you, Chairperson, for inviting me. On your request, I want to say a few remarks. I am from Tanzania, and I want to say to this conference that Tanzania is well represented. We have 4 participants from Tanzania who have attended this conference in person. We have also 2 important leaders in vector and vector-borne attending virtual. You have Dr. Togolai Mbilu from who is the director of National Institute for Medical Research, a heart research center in Tabora. We also have Benezet Lutege, assistant director of vector-borne disease from the Directorate of Veterinary Services in the Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries. But I am excited to tell you that we had also 2 participants from the Ngorongoro Conservation Area. These are the animal health specialists, but unfortunately they have left early before finishing. So these people are from the Ngorongoro. We, in the sense of SESE and trypanosomosis, research and control, these are, we can regard them as important stakeholders as consumers of what we produce in research. So I would like to thank the ISCTRC Secretariat for inviting me to be here, and also for honoring me to be a moderator of this last session. So it is my first time to attend, and I feel most privileged and honored. I was telling the chairman that when the PATEC initiative started, I was only 11 years old. So I consider myself the 3rd generation of the PATEC, and I hope this initiative will not die. And I'm also happy to meet the generals in SESE and trypanosomosis research, the General Dr. Caballo, and John Hargrove, and others. So without taking much more of your time, I would like to invite the keynote speaker, who will be speaking on the community engagement and involvement in SESE and trypanosomosis control, opportunities and challenge. Julia Karuga, please take the lead. You have 20 minutes.
Good afternoon. I hope you're well, and I think we can say reserving the last for the best for the last. Okay. So today I'm going to talk about community engagement, and before I start my presentation, I want to appreciate the organizers for inviting us, so that we can also make our contribution as social scientists, because we believe that social scientists also have an important contribution in SESE and trypanosomiasis control, and even more as we move towards eradication, and even more as we move toward elimination and eradication. So listening to the many presentations that have been made, I can only say that I'm more convinced than even when I came that the need for community engagement is becoming even more obvious from every presentation that has been made in this place. Listening to the country reports where they were talking about communities not participating, listening to WHO presentation where they were indicating that communities are not attending the screening, the passive, the active screening, listening to the presentation on drug resistance and drug misuse, all these are convincing me. And I hope every one of us is convinced that we need to engage the communities even more as we move towards CC eradication and as we move towards elimination. Also, as I listened to the presentation, I have seen that we have so many tools, we have so many strategies, we have so many programs that we are lining up. We have hard party, we have HAT elimination, we have many tools. But I want to remind us that these tools are not going to be applied in our laboratories. These tools are not going to be applied in the conferences that we love to attend. These technologies are going to be applied by the communities. These technologies are likely to be applied by the communities and not the scientists. So I think even as we come up with technologies, let us remember that these technologies, the people that we call the end users, sometimes we call them beneficiaries, are the people that are meant to use our technologies. I know research is very stimulating, and sometimes we can do research, let me not use the word, for the sake of doing research. But as we do our research, let us bear in mind that we are doing it for the beneficiaries, the communities. So I think I wanted to also point out that the need to engage the community is so obvious in this conference. And I think for each one of us, our take home is that we need to engage our communities. I'm not saying that we are not engaging them, but we need to engage them even deeper so that they own the problem of SESE, and they also are able to participate in a better way and in a way that is they are more engaged, owning the problem and moving along with us. So let me go to my slides. We were supposed to present this with Professor Bukachi, who is not around, so I'll do the presentation. So as a way of introduction, we all know, we have heard this many times, that sustainable CC and trypanosomiasis is critical for social development. In fact, it is contributing to SDG 1, 2, and 3. And let me remind us that these SDGs that we are talking about, they have little to do with any one of us sitting in this hall or this conference. These SDGs that we're talking about have everything to do with the communities that we are meant to serve. So we know the reduction of HAT will contribute to improving our health, improving the health of a community, reducing the medical trap, poverty trap, reducing the disabling and the debilitating effects of HAT, and obviously the AAT will contribute to improve production, agriculture production, livestock production, food security, improving the nutrition, ultimately contributing to improved health. So as we progress towards HAT elimination, concerted effort is required, including community. Because they are critical in TNT control, they need to attend the screening, they need to participate, they need to comply with the treatment. But we also know as we move towards elimination, and I've also heard this repeatedly, that funding for CSA control activities has gone down. There is going to be there is also likelihood that even as we move towards elimination, there is going to be reduction in funding for surveillance, in funding for TNT control, but we know these efforts need to be sustained. because we have not eliminated animal trypanosomiasis, and SESE is still with us. So the risk of resurgence still remains with us as long as we have not eliminated SESE, as long as we have not eliminated animal trypanosomiasis. The risk, if we slag, if we relax, if we do not maintain and sustain TNT control, the risk still remains with us. And we learn this even from our history. When we look at the history, we see anytime there was laxity, SESE is very good, is happy when we relax. So maintaining SESE and trypanosomiasis control measures excuse me, will continue to be important even as we move towards elimination. So the debate about sustainable SESE and trypanosomiasis has been going on. It is likely to continue as long as we have not eliminated or eradicated. And we know past interventions, they have been successful, but sustainability has been the issue. Sometimes the challenge is the short term. The projects have been short term. Now currently we are talking about PATEC was there, and it was a 6 years program. Currently we're still struggling with, because it was a project with a timeline. Because the donor funding, limited capacity, engagement, involvement, capacity gap, these are some of the issues. But we know that we cannot approach TNT control, sustainability unilaterally. We need to engage, we need to collaborate, we need to engage each and every one. So, and again, we cannot rely on communities to sustain SESE and trypanosomiasis control. For we know, because listening to Dr. Kirago's presentation about the game reserves, we know some of the areas where the SESE is found is in the game reserve. So again, we cannot rely on communities to sustain SESE and trypanosomiasis control. But they have an important role to play. You can help me out. So going back to the history of how SESE control was being done, we know the main things that were being applied was the aerial, the ground spring, the game destruction, the bush clearing. But in terms of community, because my focus today is on community, in terms of community involvement, there was forced eviction, there was forced isolation, there was forced participation. But you know, at this particular time, we are talking about light-based approach, where you cannot force communities to participate, but you need to encourage them to participate. You cannot force them. So in this era of light-based approach, we can only engage the community so that they are able to participate in SESE and trypanosomiasis control. Maybe you can move for me the slides. So when you talk about community participation, how did it all start in TNT? There is the General Assembly resolution of 1983 that indicated the need, that saw the need of engaging community in SESE and trypanosomiasis, and again, integrating HAT in primary health care. This is following up on the Alma Ata Declaration of 1978, which again brought in the issue of community, primary health care and the engagement of communities in primary health care. So there were, in terms of HAT, or in terms of, say, trypanosomiasis, we know there were several factors that favored the introduction of community participation. And one of the key things that we can talk about is the introduction, the development of localized technologies, which you are all aware about. The traps, the targets, they were seen to be effective, cost-effective, usable for communities. And of course, the reduction of HAT was a big issue. And I think we are still going back into the history, because in those years, with the reduction of HAT, there was also a reduction in funding. The way we are again looking at it currently, where there seems to be a reduction in funding for HAT control activities. So, and looking at the history, we see HAT, the emergency of HAT has been the driving force behind TNT control activities. So the risk, and I remember hearing the group of the scientists from the animal trypanosomiasis raising the issue that now with the limited, with the human African trypanosomiasis, there seemed to be a laxity on the animal control side. So I think this has been happening even in the history. So again, we see there was also the reduction in funding, because now with the few number of HAT cases, there was reduction for funding. There were environmental concerns, but there was still need to sustain TNT control. So that came in, the community were brought in to try and see how they can sustain some aspects of SESE and trypanosomiasis control. So, but we know from the reports that the results of the community participation projects that were initiated in the 90s, the results were mixed. There are those that succeeded, but even where they succeeded, they were not sustainable. And some of the factors that I've listed, the context in which community were participating were not well understood. There were issues of the law, the capacity of the different partners. Motivating the communities to sustain TNT control was also a challenge. And of course, there are these group dynamics. The issues of management of the projects were also an issue. But we know that vector control needs to be sustained until the risk of transmission is reduced. But community, again, they have an important role. So, looking at the current projects that we are undertaking, I see we are using different methods based on the locations, based on the status. So participation is being encouraged in screening, in livestock spraying, traps and all that. But what I would say is that we need a deeper understanding of socio, ecological and political economic issues that affect community participation. Because I feel that just undertaking the CAP studies, just undertaking the economic studies, without understanding the underlying factors, we will not be able to achieve much. So we need still to go deeper, even in our studies, and use the studies that we have to again accelerate the project. So the challenge of sustainability are still present, but why? So I have some few key fundamental questions that I'm asking. What is the role of community engagement? Why should we engage communities? And how can we engage the community? These are questions that we may not have the answers right away, but we need multidisciplinary approach. We need a One Health approach. And we're also asking ourselves, do we have the right skills? Do we have the right people who can engage with the community for the benefit or for optimum results of our project? So I've tried to bring to us understanding of what do we really mean by community engagement. Community engagement is really a process of building relationship so that we are able to work together with communities, so that we are able to promote the well-being, bring outcomes that are going to be sustainable. It is not a one thing, it's a process. We cannot build relationship with communities by just having some few workshops. We need deeper engagement with the communities. So, and we are saying that community engagement will contribute to behavior change, policy change, practices, programs. It is likely to also influence the way we deal with the community, the way we engage with them. They need to have inputs in how we program our activities. So there are different levels, and again, the key important thing to remember is that it is an approach that has been identified for accelerating SDGs targets in health. So there are several key features. Maybe I may not go into all this, but I think it is an important aspect that has been highlighted by WHO in their framework, and the member countries have made a commitment to use community engagement. So us in this room, we are part of this. We need to also engage and use the right approaches to engage the community, because it is going to help us to leaving no one behind is the policy of the UN. It is something that we need to also rally behind. There is a renewed emphasis on centrality of community in healthcare at the local level and globally. So this is just to provoke our thinking. At what level are we engaging our community? Are we still at the informing the community that I have this activity, I have some control activities that I need to undertake? I just don't bother about our targets, we need to go beyond informing our communities. We need to go beyond consulting with our communities. We need to go beyond informing our communities, to collaborating with our communities so that they are able to influence how we manage our programs. We need to empower them so that they don't have to rely on us to supply their career side. They do not have to rely on us fully to support. Yes, so we need to engage our communities. So this is basically trying to also show us that when you look at the SESE and trypanosomiasis, it is basically a top-down approach. Nothing wrong with the top-down approach, but how do we translate the TNT control program from externally driven intervention to community-led, so that the communities are rallying behind the PATEC, they are rallying behind HAT elimination. We need to see how to move that. We need to see how we can reverse this triangle so that the communities have a say. So how do we engage them? We need the CAP studies. We need to develop projects. And again, we need to refine the project so that you are able to come up with projects that are going to bring results. And so you can add me 2 minutes. It's okay. Summarize. Okay. So finally, I think I have the last slide. Let me just share the last slide. So does it work? Yes, it does, because we have proven it has worked for different strategies, for different diseases. It has worked. So even for us in HAT, it can work. So maybe I could stop there. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Julia Karuga, for a nice keynote. Let me invite the next presenter, who is Sylvia Muthama Koril, will be presenting on sustainability of insecticide, treated targets, treated cattle, strategies and income generating activity for community-based organization incessant panasomosis control. You are welcome and you have 10 minutes.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Are you so tired, hungry, or you want to go home? Good afternoon. Okay, my name is Sylvia Mudama Korir, and I work with the Kenya Tsetse and Trypanosomiasis Eradication Council. I'm a regional coordinator for the North Rift region. This work is part of our control work in the field. It's not academic in nature, so we are going to have a peek at what communities are doing. Now that we are all complaining about the dwindling funding, what is it that these communities are also doing in contribution to the sustainability of the efforts made so that we don't lose all the gains on the ground? Thank you for the opportunity. So we can go to the next slide, please. This one. Okay, try. So let me just skip most of it and come to the fact that the insecticide-treated cattle strategy in TNT control is actually very much efficient in areas where cattle are the ones providing a substantial blood meal for these tsetse flies. And it has also evolved over the years where the original protocol was a wholesome application like the plant dip approach. So currently there is the advocacy for the restricted application where not necessarily you treat the whole herd. You can choose a few selected animals because it has been shown by research that tsetse flies actually prefer to feed on the larger cattle in the herd, and also they just feed on the legs and the belly, so you can actually select based on their preference sites and also their preferred livestock in the herd. Then for community involvement and social inclusion, this is a very critical factor in development process of the societies, and actually it's a grassroots approach to problem solving. It enhances their ownership of what you're doing. So let us not remain in the labs, come to the field so that we go and make these communities own what we are doing. And they are the ones who will cry for funding on our behalf. And I'm sure we'll get the funding to move forward. Then, hey, it has gone back. Let's see. Yeah, here. So I will not delve much into this. I wanted us to enjoy the results because that is where the real juice is. And, but typically we just selected 2 community-based organizations in the very, very rural settings of Narok County. And these 2 community-based organizations were recruited and well-trained. Over a period of 5 years, I think we conducted 10 training sessions with them. Then this was supplied with seed insecticide, and bank accounts opened for the establishment of a revolving fund, which they were to manage as the communities. Then monthly records for spraying were maintained, and they were tabulated since 2015 to 2019. And we also had occasional focus group discussions with them to document their progress and also address any challenges that they were facing. Yeah, so here, in the results and discussion, let me just digress a bit and say that I am actually very happy to have this pie chart in 2 colors because naturally where we work and that community, the women don't have a say you'd call for a meeting and they're seated at the back facing the other side and you're talking to them here. So it's such an achievement for us to have such a representation in a CBO. Then, the next one. Yeah, this one. So when we look at the spraying figures, we only issued 24 liters of insecticide in the first year and added 4 in the second year and 2 and 3 as the years are tabulated there. Then we have the CBO, what they purchased in the following years. And we can see the kettle that they were spraying every year and the investments that they did, the cash collected, yeah, and all that. So I want to narrow down now per table. Let's look at the first CBO. They used the livestock fattening option as one of their strategies for sustainability for their group. So the first year, they did not invest. They just used what we gave them. And you can see that, those were the figures as tabulated. In the third year, they bought 1 beef animal. They invested in that as a group and sold that beef animal later at a profit and continued to add to the revolving fund in that design. The second group started commercial livestock spraying. They divided 12 liters every year and dedicated to spraying now commercially other livestock that did not belong to the group members together with their livestock. So this is the option that they took, and that is how they progressed. Yeah, so when we look at the analysis, you can see at the last columns there, when we look at the net incomes, the profits kept on growing year by year, and starting with 0, by the end of the 5th year, the first group had 433,000 shillings, Kenya shillings, in their account, or also in the form of the livestock that they owned from that project. The second one here, they had so much money in the account. That is the percentage growth analyzed there. And also the percentage change in the growth is also tabulated. Yeah, so this is how it looks like when it is represented in graph form. But basically, it's just what I was saying. Yeah, oh, sorry. Yeah, so that is what I have already summarized. So I wanted to go to the recommendations. So insecticide-treated cattle strategy for TNT control is a self-sustaining income-generating activity when these communities are well-trained, number one, so that they are doing the right thing, so that we don't contribute to the problem of resistance. And they can do it, especially for tsetse and even the other vector-borne diseases. Then diversification into other economic activities is highly encouraged so that they grow their revolving fund. And also, it generates interest in the group activities, and they feel that they have a sense of purpose and they want to do it on their own. Then the communal spraying activity should also be encouraged for the sake of cohesion, and they check out for one another. They adhere to the dilution standards because they are doing it as a group. Finally, the availability of this revolving fund opens up more opportunities and increases the economic activities in an area. And therefore, the communities are happy, they are healthier. Yeah, and they're doing well, I can report. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Sylvia, for a nice presentation and for saving us time. I want to remind the fellow delegates that you continue keep noting of the question to the presenters. Yes, by noting the names. And this takes me to the second presentation. I want to welcome Agnes Otwani, who will be presenting a review of women participation in community SESE and the trypanosomiasis control in Western region of Kenya. You are welcome, Agnes. And you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, esteemed scientists. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning. Good afternoon. Okay, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Agnes Ikolo Totwani. I work for Kenya SESE and Trypanosomiasis Eradication Council in the Western region of Kenya. Today, I want to talk about women participation in SESE, in community-based SESE control activities, and I'll dwell much in Western Kenya because that is where I work. And I'm just so happy that I'm speaking about this when the keynote presenter has already spoken, and even my colleague has touched much about community participation. Yeah, I'll be presenting this paper on behalf of my co-authors, Dr. Onyango and Dixon Bandika. Yeah, community participation, as it has already been said, it facilitates sustainability of control programs. Actually, it's known that as you involve people more, they have the option of choosing what is good for them other than relying on what professionals say. And it has also been shown that women can actually engage in vector control activities and even use that as an opportunity to generate income and sustain the control efforts. So when we incorporate women in the design, delivery, and also adoption of health intervention, that will ultimately increase acceptance. Good. Now in Kenya, KenTech is the parastatal, the state corporation that is mandated to control TNT. And we do that in a number of ways. Number one, for control, we do community mobilization for spraying of livestock. For those zero grazing unit farmers, we protect their unit using their zero fly net, mostly by Vestagard. Then we do also employ static targets, the conventional large ones and also the tiny targets for control. And also we do sensitization of our communities so that they can do the control themselves. Yeah, just to say again, scientific literature points out on the ability of women to do an important role in agriculture. And worldwide, it's estimated that about 43% of the agricultural labor force is from women. For Kenya, it's estimated at about 42 to 62%. But despite the role that women play, we noted that no published literature has been done on the role that they do on tea and tea control. So that is the basis of this study. And we seek to answer 3 questions. Number one, what is the proportion of women who are participating in activities in Western region, activities done by KenTech? Number 2, what is the trend of participation? We are going to look from 2019 to date. Then the last one, which activities are preferred by women? Something is happening? Okay. Yeah, for the methodology, I just want to say we never went to the field for this particular review. What we did, we just checked our data in the KenTech repository, and our focus was Busia and Bungoma counties, which are in Western Kenya. So what we did, we just went to our records, which are data sheets that we collect from the field, and also we have record books. Information was extracted from those books after coding the data sheets. And then the number of women for each activity and men was recorded accordingly. And the activities that were considered were mostly activities that we offer free of charge. Number one, mass spraying of livestock, AAT screening, installation of LPF or zero fly, training and sensitization. Then we also considered leadership at communal spraying groups and complaints reporting. This thing is wasting my time. Can we have, okay, thank you. Could you please put the next one? It's not working. Okay, so after getting all the data and coding, it was entered in an Excel sheet. Then we used SPSS to get the proportions and also a paired t-test to determine if the difference between participation of women and men was significant. Next slide, please. Yeah, that is just a sample of a data sheet. You can see the code is there, SPR, that means it was a spraying data sheet. Then Okuleo is the area, then the year is 2021. Next one, please. Yeah, this one is a data sheet for sensitization, and I just want to say we considered the gender, male, female, male, female. That is what we do when we are taking attendance. Next one, please. Yeah, so what did we get as our results? That table shows the results that we got for men and women, and also the p-value after running the t-test. Next one. Yeah, graphically, that is it. Number one, for AAT, we see the proportion of women to men. The one in orange, is it brown or orange, is for women. Then the one in blue is for men. And you can see that the proportion for women was only 17, men 82%. And running the t-test, yeah, that was the result, 0.002, meaning the result was significant, that actually a big number of men is participating in this activity. Yeah, now looking at the graph there, we only got data for 2020, 2021, and 2022. You see, it started well in 2020, a small dip in 2021, then there's an increase, a steady increase in 2022. And I just want to say that despite the small number of female participants, you can see that the trend is they're improving day by day. For example, from 62 in the year 2020 to 149 in the year 2022. And it's important to note that the contribution of women in this activity is only in terms of their time to bring the animals and also the labor for restraining the animals. Next slide. Yeah, the next activity is a mass livestock spraying. That is the graph, 24 for women, 75 for gentlemen. And this is the main SESE control activity that we employ in Western region. So still the men are dominating, and the difference is significant. The peak in 2020, you may wonder why, yet it was a COVID year, but we notice that what restrains our farmers from bringing the animals most of the time is that they're engaging in other activities. So maybe bringing the animal may not be a priority. So during that year, the schools were off, and so the children were at home to undertake some of these duties. So the spraying, yeah, the people brought, more people came to bring their animal. Yeah, farmer contribution for this one. Okay, it has skipped already. Then for LPF, that is it, 43 for women, 57% for gentlemen. Now, the p-value is that, meaning this result is not significant, like the number of men and women who are participating. Okay, it's almost the same. So it's important to note that LPF for Kentech, we only do it when we have the netting. So the farmer contribution usually is just to have a properly constructed unit, and you see now the ladies have come up because they are not employing any labor. We do it for them free of charge, and we do it ourselves. Yeah, then next one, please. Yeah, now that one is for sensitization again. The result is not significant. And you can see again the trend for women in orange, it's quite steady, doesn't go up and down. So the farmer contribution on this one is only time. You only have to get time to come for our trainings. We don't charge anything. Next one. Then leadership, again, I considered the key positions, chairman and secretary. You can see the same value for chairman and secretary. It just happened it's the same, 28.6, 71. Next one. Next slide. Yeah, then for treasurer, it was quite different. Now the women take the larger chunk, and the men are now trailing at 42.9. And that means that maybe women are trusted more with keeping finances and accountability. Next one, please. Yeah, complaints reporting, it's important to note that over all this time, no woman has ever reported a complaint direct with the council. So, yeah, maybe yeah, okay. The last one? Yeah, for conclusion, I can say that community-based SSA control activities are still dominated by men, and women participated more in LPF and sensitization, which do not require any kind of labor. Then the most common activities for women, the number of women participating is slowly increasing steadily. Then leadership position are still dominated by men, but treasurer's position is entrusted to women. Then women hardly register complaints with the council. Next one. Recommendations, number one, the government should consider provision of livestock restraining infrastructure to make it easy for women and people with disabilities. Number two, women's voices and leadership ought to be strengthened through specific leadership trainings targeting women. And whenever possible, we as government officers, we should be flexible with time and also employ techniques that take a shorter time. I've seen so many new techniques here. We are hoping to see them in the field. Then also consider decentralization of the complaints desk for Kentech and also toll-free services. Next one. Okay, suggestions. You can see that I did not go to the field, so we really need to go and study the factors that affect women participation, conduct interviews and FGDs to get to the core of the matter. Next. Yeah, thank you so much. Next. Yeah, thanks for your attention. God bless you. Special thanks to the government and people of Kenya for allowing me to work with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Agnes Otwani, for bringing an important data on the involvement of women in SSA and trypanosomiasis control. Now, allow me, is Karen Kikwai around? Because we don't have her presentation in the computer. She's there. So I would like to introduce to you Karen Kikwai, who will be presenting on knowledge, attitudes, and practices on SSA control among communities in Kilifi County, Kenya. Karibu Karen, you have 10 minutes.
Good afternoon. I'm going to go straight to my presentation. I'm Karen Kikwai, working with Kentech. My study area was on knowledge, attitude, and practices of SSA control among communities in Kilifi County. I think most of the things concerning SSA have been spoken, and I'm going to go directly to Kilifi County. Is one of the counties in coastal region, and coastal region, as we have heard, is SSA invested. Kilifi SSA investation in the county is attributed to the availability of suitable breeding site. For instance, in Kilifi, there is a River Galana, Arabuko Sokoke forest, which has SSA ecosystem. And many of the rural communities in Kilifi depend mostly on agriculture and livestock production. Hello? Okay. And from the County Director of Veterinary Services report 2022-2023, Approximately 4,000 cases of trypanosomiasis are recorded. And therefore, understanding the knowledge and perception of this disease have a significant impact on the adoption of the control measures. And therefore, the current study sought to assess the community knowledge, attitude, and control practices employed by the communities in Kilifi County, Kenya. On methods, the study was carried out in 3 areas within the county: Matsangoni, Kakuyuni, and Madunguni. And the study used the descriptive cross-sectional study design. Interview was administered to 380 randomly selected households, and the interview covered 4 areas: demographic characteristics of the respondents, the knowledge, attitude, and the control measures employed by the respondents. Also, key informant interviews was held with the county veterinary staff, and the data was analyzed using descriptive statistics. Help me, please. Move the slides. On the finding, the study found out that most of the respondents had knowledge on SESE and trypanosomiasis, and they were even, the local names were able to be given by the respondents, and this shows that they had adequate knowledge of the fly. 54% of the respondents associated the presence of the fly with the disease which it transmits, that is AAT. Knowledge of this disease by the community could be attributed to the socioeconomic importance of the fly, and similar finding has been reported by Kumel et al. 2013 and Mangwisha et al. 2013. Respondent indicated that the disease diagnosis was done majorly through the observation of clinical signs. And majority of the respondents had comparatively good understanding of the clinical signs of the disease. And similar finding has been reported by Giza et al., whereby he reported that farmers was aware of 1 or more signs, clinical signs of trypanosomiasis of AAT. Majority, 83% on the attitude, majority of the respondents stated that the fly, this SESE fly causes painful bites on their animals. Also, they indicated that the fly was a nuisance to their livestock. And when we interacted with the farmers, they reported that some of the time they see their animals, when they see an animal running without anyone pursuing it, they suspect it's because of the bites by the flies. And similar finding has been reported by scientists. 22% associated the fly with the destruction of grazing activity, whereby this fly interrupt the activity, the grazing time and grazing area by making the area inaccessible. Another majority of the respondents also stated that grazing near the borders of the forest, near Kakuyuni and Malsangoni are around the Arabuko Sokoke forest, and this area, as per the previous presentation, has been indicated it's infested by SESE. And grazing near this area, from the report by the farmers, it shows that they reported that it causes AAT. And similar finding has been reported by Kiza, who stated that grazing near the park was the main cause of porcine trypanosomiasis. Next slide. And various control measures are employed by the respondents, by the farmers in the county. One, curative treatment of trypanosomiasis is the most adopted by the farmers, where 82 of the respondents indicated that they treat this disease using trypanoside, curative trypanosides. And most of the respondents do the administration of these drugs by their own without the consultation of veterinary practitioners. This is because in order to cut the cost which the farmer could incur in case he contacts the veterinary doctor or practitioner. Another technique is the use of insecticide, that is spraying of the animals. And Kentech has been playing a major role in this through sensitization and training of farmers on AAT and failures control approach. Also, Kentech has been encouraging farmers to do regular spraying of their animals by issuing acaricides and spray pumps to the farmer control groups. Help me move. Another technique is the use of livestock protective fence. This involves netting of their zero grazing units using an insecticide-treated nets. And most of the farmers who do zero grazing has been sensitized and has adopted these control techniques. Another method employed is restriction of animals from accessing the SESE-infested areas. And finally, the use of, these are techniques used by the farmers, that's dry cow dung, and there's a special plant, indigenous plant, which they believe that when this dry cow dung and indigenous plant, when they are burned, they release smoke, and this smoke is believed to keep away or repel SESE fly. And the use of traps and targets have not been fully adapted by the community. And in conclusion, from the study, the findings shows that most of the respondents had adequate knowledge on SESE fly, and also there was positive attitude on and behavior towards the control of SESE fly. Therefore, from the study, it's recommended that there's need for more capacity building on TNT among the stakeholders and on and farmers. Also, there's need for more diagnostic infrastructure to help the farmers not do the administration of the drugs without proper knowledge on the type of the kind of the disease they are treating. Research also is needed into this indigenous plant used by the farmers to control or to keep away SESE fly. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, for a nice presentation. I have noted in your presentation that the word mbungo is the same used in Kilifi, and it is the same used in Tanzania. So this is an evidence base of a regional approach when we want to really tackle the SESE and the trypanosomosis challenge. So, do we have Daniel Kiza? Daniel Kiza, please. So, if there is no Daniel Kiza, I am the next presenter. So, I would also like to know if Rafael Mungare is around. Okay, thank you. Have you already loaded your presentation? Okay.
And as we agreed during the week, since he is the speaker and he is the moderator, we have a deputy to make sure he keeps to 10 minutes.
So, I appoint Dr. Dan Masiga to be the moderator.
I accept.
Then I need to moderate myself again. Yeah, I am from Tanzania and I will be presenting on the market survey and the consumer preference for novel SESE fly repellent in Tanzania. I will be presenting on behalf of a great team, a consortium from Bayori, uh, uh, and vector health control, and VVBD from Tanzania. So much of the repellent research and innovations has been well spoken by Dr. Mireji earlier this morning. So in principle, we already know that the repellents are efficient in protecting livestock and also human against SSA bites. But also by minimizing the host CSA fly contact and then the risk of getting or acquiring infections. So that can be translated to increased survival of livestock, enhanced productivity, and improved health. So as I said earlier, this work is an initiative from a grant of BioInnovate Africa Challenge 2018 to 21, which four institutes, collaborating institutes from Karo in Kenya, VVBD in Tanzania, VHI as an industrial partner, and Gulu University. Much of my work here will be to, I'll be presenting the three bullets. How do we facilitate the adoption of the repellent to the routine sensor control, and identifying the target market, the consumer needs, and guiding to collect information which can guide further product development. And the repellent technology is also new in Tanzania. So basically this study was done in the northern eastern part of Tanzania, and it is where most of our famous national parks are located. Currently, as I said in the country report, that most of the SESE reported in Tanzania, they are close to the national parks. So this study was conducted in 4 regions, and we targeted the hospitality industry, mainly tour guides and rangers, and also livestock owners. This was a voluntary participation, so the consent was given by a farmer or a person before enrollment into this study. So we used 2 types. We used masked NI repellent blend, which my colleague Dr. Paul have already said much on that, how it was done. But also we used unmasked repellent blend, which were not, no scents were added. So those mean to be tested against cattle. This masked were tested for human, the guides and rangers and the livestock headers. Unmasked was dispensed in a fabric tail or neck prototypes. And we administered a questionnaire 2 to 4 weeks after a range of 2 to 4 weeks post-experience. So you can see we have the prototype were deployed on the neck and the tail. To describe further the results, the number of respondents enrolled in this study were 114, and to highlight, only 6% were women. Majority were 20 to 40 years. 48% of the respondents came from the livestock sector, and 15 from the tourism, meaning the tour guides, and 7% were the rangers. Most of the respondents reported moderate to extensive SESE bites. It is not. Can you assist, please? On the knowledge on sessile repellent, about a third of the respondents knew that they are aware of the repellent technology. And on the other hand, 65.81 didn't report to use the repellent. Majority of the ones who reported were reported to use the repellent were the tour guides, and you can see the repellent were used when we asked them in the range of 30 days. Only 22% reported, and within 24 hours, only 2%. So, results and discussion, you can see that the dipping and all livestock treatment were the main strategies used by farmers to combat cess and trypanosomiasis. And the repellent use were reported only by small proportion, mainly from the hospitality industry. You can also, we also observe that there are, maybe you can say, the primitive ways that people, in absence of any tool, they can use hands or trees to reduce nuisance caused by cess. When it came to choice of repellent, these are the results. To highlight, most of the people, since there is no repellent, they had no any preference to a specific brand. And a 5% reported that they have no any choice. So these are the entry points to further incorporate the technology into the use when it comes to production, then entering into the market. The willingness to purchase, or 49% were willing to spend less than $1, mostly the livestock keepers, and 13% we noted that most from the hospitality industry were willing to spend 3 to 40% of the 4 to more than $4 to they are willing to spend it to purchase the cess repellent once available. So we asked also them how often would they buy the repellent. The 50% were willing to respond, were willing to purchase on monthly basis or annual basis. Concerning the easy of use of the technology, most of the respondents reported that our technology, whether in a masked repellent or unmasked deployed to the cattle in unmasked way, were easy to apply. And the masked, the people, the respondents just placed on the sachets on the vehicle dashboard or shirt pockets and then walk away. Okay, thank you. Let me. That was how the humans choose how to use the repellent. On the feedback on back on the quality, the quality was ranked at 30% good quality, so means that we have to improve more. The take-home message, there is high need to put more efforts on community awareness as a way to enhance uptake of the repellent technology, mostly by livestock herders. Also, a need to have more than 2 products when you want to target a population for hospitality and the livestock keepers. So for most of you who have been in Tanga, I wanted to conclude this presentation by noting the a pass away of our colleague, the miss of Hamisi Saidi Nyingilili, who was part of the team. And he passed away suddenly while we were carrying this job in the field, and we were just 2. So I feel indebted. He was a good brother. He was a mentor and source of inspiration for small young generation like me. So by saying so, I want to acknowledge many partners who we have worked through in achieving these results. Thank you so much. Now I'm the moderator. I switch to now as a moderator. I want to invite Rafael Mongare, who will be speaking on a geospatial modeling approach to predict the spatial distribution of sassafly habitats in Kenya. Oh, it's Gloria. Oh, sorry. My mind speaks to Mongare.
Thank you. My name is Gloria. I'm coming from the Ministry of Fisheries and Livestock, Zambia. I'm presenting a study that was undertaken in collaboration with James Cook University, Townsville, Australia, as part of my PhD project. Unfortunately, I won't be able to present everything because it may take me more than 10 minutes. So I'll just present a component of what I'd undertaken. Next slide. So this is just a highlight of my presentation. So a brief background on African trypanosomiasis. This is a disease that occurs in both man and animals. And the disease in man is what we commonly know as sleeping sickness. Then the disease in animals is commonly known as Nagana. Nagana is a major constraint to livestock production in affected countries. And the devastating effects of this disease cannot be overemphasized. Nagana has a huge economic impact on small-scale livestock farmers in remote areas of Africa. This is mainly due to high treatment costs, which eventually has an impact on the household income. Okay. Our study was based on the following: that livestock farmers in these sessa-infested areas spend huge amounts of money to protect their animals from the devastating effects of Nagana. Then secondly, profits based on their choice of control method have remained unquantified. Thirdly, most financial assessments have been conducted on the cost of control and not on the financial return. Our study objective for this particular component was to compare financial returns of controlling Nagana through a prospective incidence cattle, a prospective study of incidence cattle. Our study was conducted between February 2019 and March 2020 under 4 treatment control strategies that are usually used in Zambia. These are baronial treatment, summarin inoculation, the use of poron, and the use of cypermethrin-treated targets. Under the 4 treatments that we studied, the first group was the Berenice group, where animals enrolled in this group were treated with Berenice when they were found positive at every monthly sampling. Then in the Samorin group, the animals enrolled in this particular group were treated with Samorin every 3 months. Then in the Poron group, the animals were applied with cyfluthrin poron every 8 weeks. Then in the target group, the animals found in the area where, in the certain area where we had to deploy 300 cypermethrin treated targets. So what we did in the field was, at the beginning of the study, all enrolled animals had to be treated with Berenice just to clear any existing trypanosomes and also to record the baseline prevalence rate. Then during monthly follow-ups, animals were screened for trypanosomes using microscopy and PCR. Monthly incidence rates for each group were recorded based on PCR results. We standardized our incidence rate by subtracting the background pre-prevalence rate from each monthly post-prevalence rates. Our prevalence or incidence results indicated that there was a drastic reduction in the trypanosome incidence from all our groups that were under the treatment groups that I've defined earlier. Then to compare the financial returns of controlling the financial returns of the control strategies under study, we used the stochastic partial budget analysis, which had the following components, that is additional returns, costs no longer incurred, foregone returns, and additional costs. To account for variability in prices and uncertainty due to disease incidence, the partial budget inputs were modeled using the following distribution functions. Our sensitivity analysis results indicated that additional returns due to birth had the highest impact on the net financial returns for all the treatment groups. So our model was very sensitive to stock numbers, which meant that any births recorded would result in profits and any increase in deaths would result in losses. However, changes in other parameters had no effect on the profit margins as the value of the cattle overshadowed the setup costs. Based on our findings, we highlighted the following: that vector control groups have a greater impact on the incidence of disease compared to the parasite control treatments. Then all treatments yielded positive net financial returns, although the returns were varying. Then the Samorin group showed the greatest return than the target group, though the target group had the greatest impact on disease incidence. Then cattle survival rate was influenced by the efficacy of the control method, which could dramatically change profits or losses. We therefore concluded the following: that Samorin treatment was the most cost-effective method that can be used for small-scale farmers in resource-limited areas, while the use of cypermethrin targets may be a better option for government-sponsored programs. I think this has been brought out in other presentations. Our findings will help communities make better decisions on the control methods that will give them the greatest returns. This will allow the better use of limited resources in these limited resource communities, and it will in turn protect the livelihoods of these communities and improve food security. Yeah, of course, ethical clearance was obtained from relevant authorities for the whole study, and these are some of the references that were cited. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria, for a nice presentation and also for saving us more time by presenting for 7 minutes. Now I want to call Rafael Mungare, who will be presenting on the geospatial modeling approach to predict spatial distribution of sesefly habitats in Kenya. Karibu.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm Mungare Raphael from ISCTRC. I'm a master's student in the University of Witwatersrand in South Africa. So today I'm going to present to you a geospatial modeling approach to predict the spatial distribution of sassafras habitats in Kenya. So this work is part of the combat program that are undergoing. So a lot has been discussed from day one up to today about the spread and distribution of sassafras, also looking at the impact it has as far as human are concerned, as well as the animal are concerned. So we realized that at least over 39 sub-Saharan African countries are infested by this particular vector that is really so challenging to us since it affects both the human as well as the animals. So we realized that, yes, it has been a challenge to us since it causes the two diseases which are so critical in wildlife, livestock, and the human health. One thing that we should be worried about, because it's really so across, like it's affecting a system, our whole system that we depend on. We have a farmer who relies on the cattle or the livestock for their survival. At the same time, the farmer is being affected in return. So the process is really impaired. So we realize that in Kenya, we have like about 12% of the national GDP. Livestock is contributing at around that particular percentage. And then also about 42% of livestock production is also contributed to the agricultural GDP through the livestock production. And we realize that in Kenya, about 38 counties are burdened by AAT, causing nearly $200 million annual losses, which leads to food insecurity, and of course, this is has an impact in the nutritional value to our communities. And you come to realize that in Kenya, small-scale farmers are the ones that depend on the livestock production system for their survival or to support their livelihood. So they are the most affected. And then we see this map here is just trying to show us the cesspels that we know. And this map is actually from 1996. Okay? And then in that spirit, then we realized that climate change, human activities, and also the control interventions that we try to employ from day to day, they're really making this particular program, or rather the control of AAT, which is just as a result of the vector cesse, making it so complex in that all these factors, they try to make the system complex through altering the ecosystem where cesse lives. So where we find that precipitation, temperature, endemic vegetation, and the host are the ones that are key dependent, are the ones that really determine the occurrence and the abundance. But then these factors, they are really challenging this particular system in a way that they are trying to modify. Probably maybe it's going to affect the occurrences and the abundances to go high or low. So in that spirit, then we try to understand, we want to look at how then can we try to understand these particular complexities that are being brought about, the issues of climate change, human interventions over time. Therefore, in this particular study, we were trying to use the geospatial analysis techniques as well as the advanced machine learning modeling frameworks so that in an integrative manner to understand the ecology of this particular vector that we're talking about. I know a lot has been discussed about the biology, the epidemiology of all this, but then where does this vector live? What are these conditions that are supporting its existence, making it so complex for us to be able to control? Since we've seen a lot has been done over time, trying to understand how can we control. And to also know that is like, we have not really got a vaccine that we can help us eliminate this. So the only option that we have is controlling this vector so that as we minimize the numbers, then in a way we're able to reduce the cases in the disease. So it's also important now to understand where does this vector live. And then we're able now to make location-based planning. So we're able to identify and have evidence of our intervention. So at the end of the day, we'll be able to do evidence-based planning, monitoring, and surveillance over time, which is going to really help us. So maybe to just allude into the modeling is that we need to get the occurrences of this particular vector, where it thrives. Once we get the occurrences, then we use a number of environmental variables, which of course we mentioned here are some of the abiotic factors that really influence the occurrence and the abundance of this vector. So together with the modeling algorithms, we're able to get the distribution maps, which now are going to pinpoint where exactly do we have high probability of this particular vector to occur. So therefore, in that case, we really need updated and fine resolution and location-specific maps, which can actually help us be able to make optimized control measures by understanding also that the resources that we have, they are so much constrained. They are really constrained. So for us to make use of those resources, we need to understand where, at what scale, of course, at a finer scale, which can really help us optimize the limited resources. And also, in this particular case, we also able to identify the communities which have been highlighted by the previous presenters. These are the people that we want to know where exactly does this vector occur, so that we're able to save the communities that we have highlighted that should be part of this process in the control. Therefore, this study sought to use as satellite-based environmental variables as well as the species distribution modeling approach to predict the suitable habitat across the Kenyan landscape. Okay, thank you. So as a result, we sourced our data. We got our occurrence data from the KenTech repository, which was collected from 2017 to 2020. And then together with that, we sourced our environmental variables ranging from vegetation, edaphic, and also the landscape structure, as well as the host, which we integrated in this particular methodology, whereby the predictors were assessed to reduce the collinearity amongst them, to just retain only variables that are non-collinear for us to be able to have a robust output at the end. So the occurrence records that were also accessed, they were also cleaned to reduce the duplication, redundancy among it. And then we fitted a number of modeling frameworks. That is the support vector machine, the random forest, Maxent, and generalized linear models. Once we got this particular outputs, then we tried to see what is the best way we can be able to get an optimized model which can help to guide in the control measures in our study. So in this case, we have all these models, and then we integrate them using an ensemble modeling approach, which is an advanced modeling process. And then at the end of the day, we get a assessed risk occurrence map. So our data was split into two, 70 and 30%, 70 for training and 30% for testing how the performance of our model using the statistical metrics. And then these are our results from the four modeling algorithms that we employed in this particular. So the first one is the GRM. So we have the red shows high probability of occurrence for SESE, and then the medium is also, the yellow that you see, the shades of yellow, they show medium probability of occurrence, as well as the shades of white, they show low probability of occurrence. So these are the four, and then these four were integrated together using an ensemble model, giving us this particular model or map, showing also the red, they show the high probability of occurrence across the Kenyan landscape, and then the yellow also show the medium probability, as well as the white showing the low probability. So we come to realize that about 23% of our Kenyan landscape is suitable for occurrence of SESE, and then much of these suitable places, they are restricted to protected areas, rangelands, and the community forest reserves. And as the fundamental niches of this particular species, this particular vector. So you also realize that the northern part of this country is the most showing high probability of occurrence, especially towards the coast down here, as maybe going to see in the next slide. So we also did an assessment of our variables, which variables are really trying to help us define the ecology of this particular vector. So we find out the soil, moisture, land cover, land surface temperature, vegetation variables, human density, sand, and livestock density are the key parameters that are helping us to identify this ecological habitat for the vector. So I just also try to highlight the known hotspots of SESE within the country, and we realized that our model was able to pick especially the Shimba Hills down here. We have the Savo, Nkuruman, and then we have Masai Mara, and then we also have Ruma, as well as the Meru National Park, and also the Western Kenya of this country, which forms the hotspot of this particular vector. So we performed our models performed well from the metrics you can see here, as well as also the ensemble model performed so well, taking into account all the inaccuracies probably that might be within the single models. And then we conclude that our models could be so useful in informing the surveillance operations within the landscape to get to understand the distribution across the landscape. And also, they can be used for the optimization of the limited resources that we have for location-specific interventions. Also, it can inform the inter- and the transboundary planning for effective control of SESE impact. So, as I highlighted, evidence-based planning is very important, and these models can be adopted. And with the integration of the SESE reparent corals that we've seen, that could be really an informed strategy to control this particular vector. So I would like to acknowledge our donors that support this work and also the all recipe activities. And thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Raphael, for a nice presentation. Another round of applause to us presenters of this session. Okay, this marks the end of the presentation in the last session, number 8, which was on land use and socioeconomics. And now comes the time for questions and discussions. We have 15 minutes. You are most welcome. I will ask the people with microphones to. Yes, Chair.
A salary, and you could also be having the project there. You ask them to participate, you don't pay them, that's a different definition. Or you could have a project, as we have had some of the presentations here, where the project is in a community, you give them seed, investment, and then you want them to continue with us. So I think there's work to be done to ensure that we always are clear on what kind of a project is being implemented where, if we are going to compare them. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I see hands. Let's start from the front. Dr. Masinga.
My question is to Sylvia on the community project in the North Rift and whether there was any consideration of the SESE burden and how the SESE burden itself affected the implementation of the project. How was the interest sustained if the burden went down? Yeah, thank you.
I hope you have noted the question. Dr. Johnson Ouma.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My question is to Karen Kikwai. She said that the community where she worked, they were using cow dung and mixed with a special plant to control sese. I just wanted to understand what time was this intervention being applied? Was it in the evening, in the morning, or daytime? And whether time could be a factor, if it was applied, because we know at night, sese probably are not there, but what time during the day? Thank you.
Okay. I've seen a hand on the back, please. Please, you can also mention your name so that when the presenter responds, knows, and also for the repertoire to note. Thank you. You're welcome.
Ok, merci. C'est Patrice.
It is Patrice from DRC Congo. So I am addressing this question to Salome, and her presentation was so good. So the question is about participation. The way she talked about the participation, it is wonderful. But the impression so when we have a project, we don't elaborate it that way. I want, if maybe she can give also some example, how she organized herself so this participation can be also respected, because many times it is not done the best way. If she can also explain what they did so the participation can be in a wonderful way. Merci. Merci, Patrick.
Okay, my question goes to Raphael. I'm Stephen Udongo. I wanted to know whether he has got a way that is going to validate this modeling that he has done, because it's a prediction. Can he go on the ground and then try to validate? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Odongo. I suggest the presenter respond to the first 4 questions. There we go. We go on. The first question by Dr. Masiga to, I didn't note it, on sustenance. Yes, please.
Thank you for your question, Dr. Masiga. And yes, the consideration of the TESE burden was done because these community groups actually came to the office to register the complaints of how the TESE fly was disturbing them in their regions. And we went for the baseline surveys and established that indeed, yes, there was a TESE infestation in these areas. Over the years, we have seen a reduction in the tsetse fly densities in the area, but the area is next to the Masai Mara Conservation Area with many conservancies, and therefore the risk of reinfestation is always high because of the presence of the wildlife host species. So the other motivation that kept these groups going is that these synthetic pyrethroids address both the tick control and the tsetse control. So they were doing it both for tick and tsetse control. And while at it, they were saying the shiny coats of the livestock are even making the livestock more marketable in the markets. And it gave them a motivation to continue, as well as the monetary implication of the project, because they've been gaining some money as they do the control work. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question to Karen by Dr. Johnson Ouma. Karen.
Hello, Dr. This cow dung, point to note, cow dung and this special plant, they are used separately. Some of the farmers use cow dung and some use these special plants separately. And as I had said, my study area was carried out in this area which borders Arabuko Sokoke. This, the lighting of the fire mostly is done in the morning and in the evening. Use this technique to protect or to keep away sese in the areas.
Have you made any attempt to try to just check whether those animals are really protected from ticks? I mean, they don't have infections?
On that area, we've not done any work to follow up whether there's no infection, but from the farmers, they've not reported any, from the interaction we had, they've said since they use the plants, they have not had any cases of trypanosomiasis.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. The next question to Patrice, from Patrice to Salome. Salome, please. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that question. You are asking about how to engage with the community for sustainable or for good results. What I would say is there are really no light ways of engaging with the community, but as I've pointed out, engaging with the community takes time. It is about building a relationship with them. It is about understanding their needs and their preferences. So if you are not able to, or if you fail to identify their needs properly, if you fail to plan with them, you are not likely to achieve results. So I think it all goes back down to planning with the community, informing them, engaging them from the point, from the very beginning. And as you move along, you also refine the tools or the strategies as you move along, using the CAP studies to refine the tools that or the strategies that you're going to employ in your program. I think that's what I could say.
Thank you, Mama Julia, for a nice response. Let us move to the fourth question from Dr. Odongo to Raphael on validation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dongo, for your question. I would like to respond that for the validation purposes, we utilize the expert knowledge when you are doing these models. So expert knowledge we sourced from the Kentech team. We sat together when we developed this model, and they helped us to do a validation, trying to do the checks that those areas that have been flagged to be having high probability of suitability for this particular study. So they agreed to most of the places, but interestingly, there were also some other areas that they say that yes, they have been highlighted to be suitable, but no surveillance has been done. So for us to ensure and continue with the validation, we gave the Kentech team the model that we developed for them to perform the surveillance, and I'm actually waiting for the data to do the validation process. And then of course, I would also have wished to maybe utilize the expert knowledge in the room, but I never really had that much time to display the map and help us with the interaction that you've had with the Kenyan landscape, and we further validate the models. So thank you. I think I've answered, please.
Thank you, Raphael, for your response. So I'm sorry we are running short of time, and I'm sorry you cannot take more questions because there are only 3 minutes remaining, and we can use this time for recommendation for wrap up of this session. So I would like to hear more from you delegates. How can we conclude from this session? You're welcome. There's a hand from Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think that some of the findings coming out of the community engagement studies, some are perceptions, And I believe that there is a good opportunity here for us to validate some of the claims that are being made. I would recommend that there should be follow-ups and interaction with biological scientists, those that are entomologists, and scientists to follow up with, with what the community are saying. Because I believe that some of the claims being made could be very useful and could actually lead to discovery of even other interventions. So that's what I would recommend, that let's follow up and validate some of those claims. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Johnson. The hand from John Hargrove. You're welcome.
Hi, thank you very much. I just wanted a general thing that I really appreciated this meeting, and I congratulate everybody that's been involved in putting it together. But of course, there's always things which you think, well, could have been improved in one thing or another. And there are just two little points I want to point out. On the logo, and everybody's pretty much pointed this out, that's not a tsetse fly. Now, this is a real problem. If people who look at this from the outside say, this is an organization which doesn't actually know what insect it's working on. We can't have that happen next time. So it's a minor point, but we need to take care of it. The other thing is that the most important thing about this meeting, in many, many ways, it's not the most important, but an extremely important thing, is that we get to know each other. And what we have here are badges with names on them, names which can't be read, because they're black on a dark background and they're in 2-point type, approximately. I'm exaggerating for effect. You have to have black on a white background so that we can see the names of people, we can get to know them. This is very important. But I don't want that to detract from my more positive message, which is great job, well done. I particularly like, by the way, this last, unfortunately, it was sort of crammed into a short space, but the community participation, community involvement is extremely important in the light of the fact that we are actually tending to use these self-help, simple sort of situations, and those will help, will work very much better if the community buys into them and carries on. So congratulations on doing that. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Professor Hargrove, for those nice remarks. I would like one hand from a lady, and I see Mama Julia. Please, you're welcome.
Good afternoon. My contribution will be, I think moving forward, we need to recommend more engagement with the communities. And again, for our country programs, I think you need to incorporate the socio-economists in your program, so that we get to have this information coming forward and plan with the communities, integrating the results of our findings in our programs. That is what I would recommend.
Thank you, Mama Julia, for such nice recommendation. Now, let me pick a hand from Francophone. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. I want to elucidate 2 points. With intervention with community, we have to elaborate a strategy in collaboration with communities. So from the beginning, that is the first. So we have also the result must be also transmitted to the community. These are the 2 points I wanted to recommend. It will help them and integrate them to the activity which will be organizing. Thank you.
To wrap up this session and welcome the chair. Thank you for all your contribution.
So thank you very much. I don't want us to keep us any longer. I wasn't envying the moderator of the last session, considering that we are dealing with a topic that is quite passionate, and I'm very happy that he managed to control it. Otherwise, we would have continued and continued and continued. It's also the last session, and I know people are very tired. So first of all, let's give a very warm round of applause to our moderator and rapporteur. So thank you very much. I will now want to get guidance from the Secretariat on how we proceed from here, because if we, somebody was talking about indigestion, and I don't want us to have indigestion if we get too much. So Secretariat, if you could guide us on how we move from here, because it has been very intense. I'll make a few comments about that. John, thank you for your comments. I think there is many more that we have gathered along the way. But Secretariat. So, I have been given guidance. If you look at your programs, the next item is a crossing ceremony. So that's what we are going to get into. I know there were a number of other things that needed to be done. I'm assuming that they are going. So let's give another round of applause as the last panel leave. For the presentation, the link is going to be sent to all of them. What about the representatives of the regions? Yeah, it is part of the program. Then see the link for presentation will be sent to them. So I understand that my job is done, so I'll step aside. But before I do so, my understanding is that you will be sent a link to the presentations so that you are able to review them in your own time. So thank you very much once again for being a great audience. All the best.
Good afternoon once again, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it has been a long week of discussions. Conversations have gone on around the subject of SESE and trypanosomiasis research and control. We now want to transition straight away to the official closing of the 36th ISCTRC conference. While we are making a few preparations here and there, here up front, I would like to make a few announcements. And the announcements are concerning issues of